Hello, welcome back. And as always, I thank you for tuning in and especially for your dedication and your commitment to your spiritual practice, to your walk, your journey, whatever it may look like for you, and whatever role A Course in Miracles may play in that. It could play any number of roles from your primary focus of spirituality to something that you're just taking a look at because YouTube recommended it or because you've heard about it or anything in between. Whatever your situation is, you are here and that is what matters. Viewers here on this channel are from everywhere, all over the world. Literally, it's an international community and all different levels of experience with this course, from longtime students to people that are not students of A Course in Miracles, yet find themselves here for a reason. You will know what that is should you continue to tune in, which of course I invite you to do. Naturally, right? It's very important, and I often emphasize this because it really is of great importance that you're taking the next 20 or so minutes out of your day or out of your evening to pay attention to the message of our inner teacher, the Holy Spirit. Call it whatever you want to call it, by the way. It goes by many, many names right here in the Course. It's known as the Comforter, the Voice for God, Mediator, Communication Link, and many other things. So those are all simply names. And you may call it whatever you wish, or if you prefer to think of your inner teacher as your guides, plural, no problem. Call them whatever you wish to call them. It is part of our mind. It is not outside you. Therefore, I stress always inner teacher. We've been talking for the past few days about sin and sin as contrasted with simple error. And you may wonder, why are we talking about this? Why is it important? Well, for starters, we're going through the text of A Course in Miracles, and we're on chapter 19, sections 2, sections 3, right? That talk about sin and error. And in fact, section 3 is entitled The Unreality of Sin. And yes, just as the title of this section implies, you are not a sinner. You've never sinned. It's impossible. God has no ego to be offended. You'll hear that again if you've never heard it before. God has no ego to be offended because God is the only reality. If one's the only reality, there's no separate other to give offense. There is only perfect oneness. Now, we're part of that perfect oneness. We're included in that for something that you deep down do know. Your reality, our reality, is not the physical body. It's not our randomly assigned status as Homo sapiens sapiens, human beings. That's a label that somebody made up that we've agreed will apply to us. Our reality is not a compound body that does not last, that may expire in the next 15 minutes. We don't actually know. It's highly fallible. It's not who we are. And we deep down all know that. We're part of this perfect oneness, the Son of God, the extension. of God. God's creation. He created us. Creation is extension. What does God extend but himself? What does love extend but itself? Exactly. So we can make what we deem to be tremendous, great progress here on the path by taking the time to think about and accept some of these ideas that we're presented with here in A Course in Miracles and to apply them in our day-to-day, moment-to-moment lives, where we're presented, gifted with multiple opportunities to practice. This is how we really learn the material. It's one thing to understand these ideas on an intellectual thinking basis. Yes, that has some importance, but it is nothing compared to the actual visceral, experiential, day to day, moment to moment reality of putting these ideas into practice in your daily life. There, our experience shows us, it proves to us and demonstrates to us that these ideas are in fact true. It is perhaps the most powerful way of learning is to apply and put it into practice because, as we see, the intellect only gets us so far. It's been said, and very accurately, that it gets you to the door, then you got to open it. I mean, understanding the intellectual underpinnings of this, sure, it's important, but it's all about the doing. So when we believe that we're separate from God, which we're not at all, there is no separation of any kind, then we tend to immediately go to a sense of separation from all of our supposed other 8 billion human beings and all the other life forms. We see separation and division and multiplicity everywhere we go. Okay, this is where we appear to find ourselves. So it's very important to understand that as long as we see ourselves as limited, then we will have lots and lots of struggle. We'll have a lot of trouble digesting and accepting and putting the ideas of this course into practice. So that is why the course repeats that we're not a body. You are not a body. Something that we've all known. We've always known that. And it doesn't mean that we've always accepted it, and you may not accept it right now. In fact, it's 100% possible for you to rail against this pixelated image on your screen and insult it. It's nothing. This is nothing special. What's speaking to you is your inner teacher. We can always deny the message. We can choose not to recognize it, and perhaps you're experiencing that resistance right now. Resistance is of the ego. So, no matter how often we resist it, we discover that the things that we're habitually conditioned to do here in the world don't bring us peace of mind. They certainly don't bring us the peace of God. So, we wind up looking for answers again and again. We wind up here on what we call the spiritual path. So, to come back to the unreality of sin, there is no sin. You're not a sinner. Our perception is not fixed, lasting, and permanent. Now, we sometimes want it to be. When we look at the world, when we look at ourselves, when we look at each other, we desperately want to cling to a sense of solidity. We desperately want to cling to a sense of permanence in the world that we appear to see. We want everything here in the world to be completely fixed and lasting, yet we're presented over and over with completely overwhelming evidence that nothing in this world lasts. There is impermanence here in the world. Everything is changing. Everything is transforming. This organism is changing. I didn't used to have this. For example, this was darker and more full of hair at one point in time. Case in point, right? The physical body is always changing. Everything is always changing here in the world. So here's an idea that we would all do very, very well indeed to take to heart, so to speak. Anything that changes, anything that transforms or shifts in any way is illusion. It is not reality. It is not of God. Reality is permanent and constant. And yes, this means that the world itself is illusion. In fact, the central teaching of A Course in Miracles, like it or not, is there is no world. We didn't learn that in school growing up. Or if you did, then, well, excellent. The overwhelming majority of us did not. So here we appear again to find ourselves looking something like this, with a stack of bills, with a job to go to today or tomorrow or the next day, with stuff to occupy our time. And what do we do with this? Well, we open ourselves to the guidance of our inner teacher, and we begin to practice true forgiveness as this course teaches it. Our forgiveness shows us that this idea of separation has no hold on our brother, in other words, other people, and it has no hold on us. What is the subject for true forgiveness? Anything in our lives that is not 100% wholly and completely joyous. So that's a lot of stuff, isn't it? Day to day, moment to moment, there are a lot of things that aggravate us. We become easily irritated and annoyed. We may even fly into a fit of rage, or perhaps we have a bout of sadness or depression or anxiety, whatever it is. Whatever it is, if it's not wholly joyous, it presents us with an opportunity to forgive whatever appears to us on the screen of life. We forgive that. We bring our willingness, our little willingness to forgive that. And our inner teacher, the Holy Spirit, does the rest. Our part to play here is not large, but it's very, very important. Without it, nothing else in our healing can happen, which is why these messages are repeated in so many words and in so many ways. In fact, the Course itself is famously known for repeating the same few ideas over and over again. Well, and what spiritual tradition isn't, really? We need that repetition as adult learners because our conditioning is so pervasive that we find that we slip back or return to our judgmental ways, our unforgiving ways all of the time. When you notice that, you simply bring your awareness back to true forgiveness. Like a living, breathing, waking meditation, we bring our awareness back to the item at hand. In this case, our relationship with our inner teacher and true forgiveness of everything and everyone. And another idea that we're very familiar with, but very resistant to, is seeing our brother as ourself. We're all familiar with the dictate, love thy neighbor as thyself. Yes, just yes to that. Why? Your neighbor is yourself. Your brother is you. He is not separate from you. Would you hate yourself? I mean, maybe you're saying, yeah, I would. Well, you can forgive yourself. We need practice learning to see our brother as ourself, to see his needs, her needs, their needs as our own, because they are. We all have the same need. We need to set the ego, this false, illusory sense of self, aside. We all want the same thing, the peace of God. And why would that be? There is nothing else. What else is there to want? If all else is illusion, yeah, there is the peace of God, which we all do want. Now, that is another idea that is repeated in many places and in different ways here in A Course in Miracles. And it's repeated in many different ways because even from day to day, we don't know what's going to connect. We really don't know. We don't know what's going to resonate with us, and we don't know what's going to land. So we're given the same teachings over and over again. And the attitude that's pervasive, that's a nice way of putting it. No, right? The attitude that's pervasive in the world of, oh, that's so yesterday. I've already seen that. Well, did you apply it and learn it completely? Maybe you answered yes, but perhaps not. Yeah. And well, that's hence the repetition. Along the way, we find we have multiple opportunities to practice. This entire lifetime could be seen as a giant forgiveness opportunity on a platter. And when you begin to understand the magnitude and the importance of it and the efficacy of it because it works, then you find you're not seeing things the way you used to, which is very, very good. All right. So, as always, questions are more than welcome here. This is a very good place to ask them if you've got them. So please feel welcome to do that. And even if you deem the question to be of a very beginner-ish nature, those are often the best. Ask, please, because there may be somebody that is a 20 or 30-year veteran, so to speak, a longtime student that's going to get something due to your asking. This proverbial light may come on for them. We don't know when that light's going to come on. So we show up and ask questions. We show up with that willingness to learn, to listen to the guidance of our inner teacher. So if you have not yet subscribed, please do that as well. This is the prompt in the corner of your screen. Just go ahead and click that. You'll be invited to join us. And thank you to those of you. There have been a number, quite a few, that have recently joined us. Again, as we mentioned at the outset, it's an international community, and several videos appear here each week. So again, I'm here to serve as a guide, as a help for you. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I see the comment thread and I check it frequently. All right. So I thank you again for joining me, and I will talk to all of you very soon.